right?
All right, so how does this? What do we do now?
I just started the broadcast.
This is broadcasting. We're doing this. This is happening now.
Yeah, we're broadcasting. But I'm gonna edit and post, man. So like all this stuff we're talking about, you know, that'll get cut in post. I'll fix it in post.
Sounds very professional. I like that.
Doesn't it, man? It's all right. We'll fix it in post.
Just like Spielberg did.
That's right.
In this little movie about the Jews. Oh my God! Why does it keep coming back to the Jews?
It does, man. You keep bringing it back to the Jews. People are going to think this is a Nazi podcast.
This is the Vote Trump podcast. 2016, baby. Like pulling my boxer shorts up here, even though you can't see that. So this is what happens when you just wake up from a nap. I never nap.
Napping's good though, man.
Yeah, well, that was needed. I was exhausted. So say something about Mr. Robot.
Say something about Mr. Robot.
This way. This way.
All right. I like Mr. Robot. Thanks for listening, folks. It's been.
Well, so I guess we should maybe start off by discussing a little bit about season 1, I guess, before we segue into last night's premiere or premieres. I guess it was 2 episodes combined.
Yeah, it was 2 episodes. It was a part 1 and a part 2.
I like the way they did they already tend to have a very Stanley Kubrick-like feel to it and everything, and then they did that intermission thing, which was very 2001 clock. I'm not sure if Clockwork Orange had the intermission, but I know 2001 had the intermission with those type of credits rolling there. It didn't last nearly as long as the 2001, obviously, thankfully.
Yeah, wait, let's save that for a minute. Okay, wait. All right. Welcome to the Evil Corp podcast with Mark and Mondo. I am Mondo, and you're Mark. Introduce yourself, Mark.
I am also Mark.
There you go. Yeah, so we'll be discussing Mr. Robot season 2. But first, we are going to discuss season 1. We're gonna get caught up because we talked about doing this podcast last year, and we didn't.
No, yeah, we got a late start on the whole idea, I guess. You know, like a lot of people, I think they found the show, you know, towards the end of the run and caught up and got into it later. So at that point, it was a little late to do anything with it.
Yeah, and it's I saw you posted something the other night because Mr. Robot was coming back. I can't do my Zoidberg impression, but you did you typed a Zoidberg impression.
Yeah, for some reason I can't help pronouncing Robot like like I'm talking to Bender and I'm Zoidberg.
Mr. Robot.
Mr. Robot.
Oh, so yeah, so I saw you post that, and I was like, you know, we talked last year about doing a Mr. Robot podcast, and we didn't do it. And sure enough, yeah, season 2 started. As we record this, it started last night.
Yeah, and surprisingly, I mean, I actually didn't have a lot of heads up. Usually, you know, you kind of know weeks, months in advance of a premiere date, and I actually didn't really even know it was starting up. I was kind of just wondering. I hadn't heard anything. Was wondering if the show was going to be back for summer, if it was going to go a little bit longer than a year, because I think it was July. It started last year, and then suddenly, like a week, 2 weeks ago, somewhere in that range, I saw a commercial on July 13th, and like, whoa.
Yeah, it snuck up on me.
I don't have to wait.
Yeah, it definitely snuck up on me.
Which is kind of cool. That way I didn't have to, you know, have all the anticipation. It was kind of just out of nowhere.
They sprung it on you. It was a pop-up, as Andrew would say.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk about season 1 at all? Starting on that, and
we should talk about season 1. Season 1 happened last year, and we met a bunch of characters, and they did some stuff, and it was it wound up crazy. Okay, season 2. Things are still crazy.
So now, season 1, I have some lingering questions. Maybe you could address these, since I've, there are certain things I've come across, whatever, in social media that in discussions, but there are questions that I developed which I've never seen addressed anywhere else. No one else has talked about, as far as that I've seen. So maybe you've either figured this list, or maybe you've come across information. But for one, my primary question is, why is Elliot not in jail from enabling the prison breakout? How would the police not have traced that to him? Is that a plot hole, or am I missing a key bit of information there?
That is that might be a good question.
Because, I mean, the police would have obviously found Shayla's body out in the car outside the prison. They would have found Vera's brother's body. They both would have been easily traceable to Elliot. She is his girlfriend. She lives next door. Elliot was there visiting Vera's brother that same day at the prison, and this all goes down. He works at Allsafe. I mean, it seems like he would have been a clear, obvious target of investigation after that. And yet it was never mentioned again, really.
Yeah.
Is that a plot hole, or is there something else going on, you think?
That might be a plot hole.
Now, I do want to bring that back in when we discuss last night's episode a little bit, just because there's a theory floating around that I heard in relation to last night's episode, which could go back to that, but I'll get into that when we discuss the episode. Another question from last season, the 9th episode, Terrell Wellick goes to visit Elliot in his house before they go to the arcade, and the Pixies piano version of Where Is My Mind starts playing.
Yes.
Elliot starts putting on plastic gloves. What were the plastic gloves for? Not Elliot, I'm sorry. Terrell started putting on plastic gloves.
Now, this is back at the arcade?
No, at Elliot's apartment right before they go to the arcade. And it seems at the moment like they want us to think he's getting ready to maybe kill Elliot or something, but he's just basically there. It turns out to say, listen, I know what you're doing. Cut me in on it. So why the plastic glove build-up before that?
Well, he maybe I should have rewatched all of season 1 over the past couple of days. Did he touch anything in the apartment? I mean, it could very well be that he's planning on killing Elliot. We definitely know that Tyrell is capable of killing people, because he killed that guy's wife, the guy that became the CTO of Evil Corp.
Right.
So we know that he's a killer, and we know that while he's psychotic and got some issues, he seems to be careful-ish.
So maybe it was just a matter of he was prepared to kill Elliot if Elliot didn't cut him in and give him the information that he wanted. But
Right.
Then Elliot capitulated and took him to the arcade. Maybe.
Now, speaking of plot holes, I had all right, let's brief recap of season 1 of the show itself. The main character is Elliot Anderson. Just Elliot Alderson, and he is he's a genius level hacker, computer guy. He's an IT guy. He works for a company. He does IT for them. Network security is their thing. He's a cybersecurity kind of guy. What's the company? Allsafe? Yeah. He's awesome. And he gets contacted by someone called Mr. Robot. And they're planning they're planning a revolution by deleting all the financial records of everybody, bringing everybody, destroying banking, destroying credit. Like, you would have like no debt whatsoever.
They're basically following the Project Mayhem, Tyler Durden blueprint for revolution.
Right. Mr. Robot contacts him on the subway. It's played by Christian Slater. And
Christian Slater's in this?
Yeah, man. Christian Slater is Mr. Robot.
Oh, I remember him from the 80s.
So we get he contacts him. He brings him into this group called F Society, and this is the group that plans on doing this thing. And he joins. He says, "Yeah, man, I'm in." And he's got issues. He's got a lot of like social anxiety issues. He's paranoid. He takes drugs.
Morphine.
Yes. And he also takes the drug that gets you off of the morphine, sort of, right?
Right, yeah. He has a strict rule about having to have that drug in relation to the morphine, which ultimately is why Shayla gets hooked up with Vera and gets Shayla killed. So, yeah.
Right.
Because not too many people have the availability of the second drug. I forget the name of it.
Yeah, me too. But the second drug is basically what you take to not to not get addicted to morphine, but basically to not get addicted to morphine, just to put it simply. And most people who are taking things like morphine and heroin, I mean, they're not looking to not be addicted. So yeah, it's not exactly a in-demand substance. But he's got a lot of issues, and we see he's got issues. He meets the rest of F Society. And they're all kind of very quiet. One of the things I also love about Elliot, and what I love about the show, is he's talking to you. He calls us friends. He says, "Hello, friend," and he is talking to us, the viewer, as he's doing his thing. I mean, he doesn't see us as a viewer, but it's definitely like a fourth wall breaking kind of thing, where he's talking to us as we watch him do his things. And he accuses us of stuff too.
Well, yeah, it gets very meta. And, like at the end of the season, obviously, where some of the reveals come, he's very pissed off that we didn't clue him in, because we obviously knew what was happening, which we did, as far as the whole, Tyler Durden-esque reveal of the Christian Slater character. We're supposed to be aware that this is happening before it's actually revealed, and he knows that, and he's very upset that we didn't kind of clue him in on that.
Yeah. he mentions that in the season opener for season 2 as well. Like, he doesn't talk to us at first for a little bit.
Right, yeah. He's rebuilding the relationship with the audience, it looks like.
Yeah, and it's like, but at first he's just like, "Hello, friend. Fuck you, man. You didn't tell me what the hell is going on. Like, I don't trust you because you didn't tell me. You knew all this shit. You didn't tell me." And some of the things we will just reveal. We're not really spoiling anything unless you haven't seen season 1. And if you have, it's like, if you started with season 2, man, you should know this, because there's no secrets in the opener from season 1. But Mr. Robot turns out to not only be Elliot's father, he turns out to be Elliot's dead father. And
yes.
Elliot did not recognize him as his father or dead father. He thought he was a regular guy, like you said, just kind of like, Fight Club, the whole Tyler Durden narrator thing. He had no idea that he was talking to himself.
Which, considering he's of Egyptian descent, dark-skinned, and Christian Slater is very pasty and white, I could understand why he wouldn't make that connection.
Pasty.
Like myself, yeah. It'd be like me being his father.
Right. We did see his mother occasionally. His mother is dark, but of course we don't see her before the. I don't think we see her before the father reveal.
I think you do get little tiny flashbacks where you see her in the background, like when he's at Steel Mountain, and he's trying to kind of break that other guy down a little bit to get to somebody else who has better access at Steel Mountain. You see him having a flashback of his mother, like throwing him on the floor over by the elevators. And another one earlier in the season where she's, I think, burning a cigarette on his arm. But it's all kind of background. You didn't see any like real close-ups of her until last night when she was a little bit older.
Right. Yeah, not exactly a happy family. Now, the main reason Elliot gets involved with F Society, or so he thinks at the time, is this E Corp, or Evil Corp as he calls it. And one of the great things about the show is since we're viewing it through Elliot most of the time, whenever he hears them talk about E Corp, like on the news or anything else, he hears the word evil. So news reporters are saying Evil Corp. Newspapers refer to them as Evil Corp. But this is in his head. They're not actually saying Evil Corp on the news.
Right. He's programmed himself, and then since we're in his imagination, I guess presumably we hear it the way he hears it. Though I did notice for the first time last night, and maybe this was happening last season and I didn't pick up on it, but there were times when Elliot's not there when you do hear them called E-Corps. I don't know if that was the case last year or not. I don't know if you noticed. I didn't. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. But it seemed like even when Elliot wasn't necessarily the listening or in the room, it still seemed like it was referred to as Evil Corps most of the time. But last night it wasn't. Like when they had the meeting with where they were burning the $5.9 million.
Yeah.
And the bike messenger says this. That this is are you from E Corps? And Darlene refers to them as E Corps a little bit later as well. So. I don't know if that was the case last year. I mean, it would make sense since it's Elliot's head where everything is Evil Corps. But last year, it seemed to me like it was always Evil Corps.
Right. I think, again, I'd have to rewatch season 1, but I think you might be right. But I'd have to watch to be sure. Now, you mentioned Darlene. Darlene is a member of F Society, which Elliot has joined, thanks to Mr. Robot.
And my future wife, yes.
And your future wife. And, as we're going through, I mean, Elliot doesn't really talk to most of the other members of F Society. Mr. Robot does, but Elliot does not. Elliot's kind of quiet with them. They don't really talk to him very much. So he eventually starts like connecting with them a little bit, including Darlene, who is one of the hackers of F Society. And he goes to kiss her, man. Well, he does kiss her.
Yeah. Towards the end of the season, they're sharing a moment when they're close to doing the hack, and he reads the social cues all wrong in that moment, and then she has to smack him back into reality and realizes that he's been, I guess, having one of his episodes. I guess it's implied that this is not the first time something like this has happened. I don't know if it's ever really made clear whether he's ever forgotten who she is before. But he's clearly had some mental breaks before. Yeah. And she realizes at that moment that he has no idea who she is. And
yeah, and she's like, did you forget again?
Yeah.
And he's like, forget what? Oh, wait, I'm remembering now. Oh, you're my sister.
Which, he can't blame us, the audience, for that, at least me, because that I didn't see coming. I saw the Mr. Robot thing, I think, as most people did, but the Darlene thing took me by surprise.
Yeah, Mr. Robot was very quickly not a surprise.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely wasn't a surprise at first that Mr. Robot was Elliot and like a figment of Elliot's imagination. It was more of a surprise, although I think a bunch of us were starting to realize the connection that Mr. Robot was also Elliot's father, not just a figment of imagination, but a figment of imagination that was Elliot's dad. Yeah, I mean, I figured out really quick that like Mr. Robot didn't exist. But then they did that awesome misdirect. I'll get to that in a second. Yeah, Mr. Robot Man, did anyone really talk to Mr. Robot either? I don't think when they were together, people didn't really talk to Mr. Robot. We only saw Mr. Robot interact with other people when Elliot wasn't around.
There was the one scene where he's like talking directly to Darlene. I think at the F Society hangout, and then of course there's a scene where he meets Tyrell Wellick in the back of his car, and it's just Mr. Robot and him, or at least we see it as Mr. Robot and him. I guess later on we're just to think that that was Elliot, and Elliot was having us see it based on the frame of mind he was in more at that moment, I guess.
Right.
And he was more in the Mr. Robot persona completely.
Yeah, yeah, again, I didn't see it coming that it was his father as quickly. I mean, I realized it, I think like most of us did, before the reveal. But, I mean, the father thing wasn't as apparent from the beginning. And then, like I want to talk about that misdirect. There was that one episode when they were on their way to Steel Mountain to hack into it.
Right.
And Elliot was overdosing because he was trying to keep himself going to do this, and he didn't have all the shit he needed, and he was fucked up. And at that point, we actually see Mr. Robot interacting with other members of F Society in a way we hadn't seen before. And I was like, oh, fuck. I've been thinking for like episodes that, for at least a couple of episodes, I've been thinking that he was going through withdrawals. He wasn't on drugs. He was going through withdrawals because he didn't have the drugs. Right. So I was thinking that maybe I was wrong about Mr. Robot being... It was fairly early in the season, too, like around halfway. I thought I was wrong. But then it turned out that it was all just hallucinations. He was hallucinating all of that shit. So, but... And
I think even when they're in that hotel room, I don't know, do we actually see them interacting with Mr. Robot, or just Mr. Robot kind of talking to them and you know, telling them what to do, and that he's there for Elliot and such? But I mean, I think we kind of see the other two guys kind of like looking in that vague direction and saying things, but it could be taken any way they want as to who they're talking to, whether they're talking to Elliot lying in bed or Mr. Robot sitting beside him.
Yeah, no, it could go. It's Elliot's hallucination, though, is definitely making it so that, you know, you couldn't be sure. Yeah, they might not have been like directly interacting with Mr. Robot, but they were definitely, there was more interaction than there had been before. And whether or not, like, you know, they were actually talking to him or just like looking in that direction or talking to Elliot. So that was a big misdirect for that episode. And they had me, man. I was just like, what? I'm so confused now. Is Mr. Robot really a guy? And of course, it turned out he wasn't.
I think the biggest question mark for me with that was the meeting with Tyrell. When we don't see Elliot, he's not there, and it's just Tyrell and Mr. Robot meeting. And that's the one that said, well, what is going on here if this is happening? And right around that same time, there was that one scene where Mr. Robot is addressing Darlene directly and she's addressing him directly. But I mean, I guess in retrospect, we're just supposed to take it as, like I said before, it's just kind of in his mind, that's where he was at. And that's what he wanted us to see.
Yeah, because he wasn't even sure about it himself, you know. Yeah, so we're looking at, to refer back to Fight Club, we're looking at Tyler Durden talking to people without our narrator, Elliot, being there, like, whatsoever. Like, Mr. Robot has complete control of Elliot. At least that's how I took it, that he has complete control of Elliot at those times. Or Elliot just is Mr. Robot at those times. I don't want to necessarily say control, because Mr. Robot is probably not a other entity. I mean, he's Elliot. He's Elliot's khakis. No.
Maybe Elliot should just build a robot that looks like his dad.
That might be where this whole show is heading. Mr. Robot just wants his own body.
Yeah.
So we find out that Darlene is Elliot's sister. And, as the season progresses and we find out that like Elliot is Mr. Robot, or that Mr. Robot doesn't exist. I mean, at the beginning of the show, for whatever reason, like maybe during his period of forgetting, he totally forgot about F Society, and Mr. Robot had to bring him back in because he joins this group that he started.
Right.
Which is why no one's surprised to see him when he shows up. I mean...
Right, and I mean, in that very first scene in season 1, I mean, that's my first tip-off when made me start wondering is when Mr. Robot brings him to the arcade. When I forget the character's name, the tall black dude opens the door, he never makes eye contact with Mr. Robot. He looks right at Elliot, gives him a dirty look, and they walk in. And right away, I was like, okay, is this what's happening here? So yeah.
Yeah, there's no like, who's this, or because they know who it is. It's Elliot. It's the guy who, and they probably just wondering where the fuck he's been all this time.
Right, yeah, he's probably been, blacking out and doing this and that and just disappearing for long periods of time. And who knows how many other identities he might even have. I mean, do we know that Mr. Robot is the only other alternate personality he has? I mean, there are some people that think he's Tyrell Wellick, which that doesn't really hold together, I don't think, if you really look at that.
No, it doesn't. But I mean, I go back and forth on that. Tyrell Wellick is he was an up-and-coming executive in Evil Corp. He was he was gunning for the CTO position, the Chief Technological Officer position, and they did. Man, Sam Esmail, he's good at like fucking with your head because he did a lot of the same shit with Elliot and Tyrell that he does with Elliot and Mr. Robot, which again to like misdirect you to think that maybe it could be. But then there are certain things, yeah, it definitely falls apart. I mean, I'm still wondering, personally, whether or not, like, they're the same person.
The one scene, I think, was it in the finale? I think it was in the season finale, maybe the second to last episode. No, it would have been the season finale because Tyrell Wellick was missing, where his wife, Joanna, and they had that scene outside their apartment. And the way she talks to him, it's almost kind of like very condescendingly kind of feeling him out. It could be taken if you look back later on and found out that she was aware that Wellick or Elliot is crazy and has alternate personalities and she's aware of them. That scene could play like she was, aware of that, kind of placating him, kind of feeling him out and not wanting to, deal too harshly with him, wake him up too soon, but at the same time feel him out and see where his mental status is at that moment.
Because she is fucking crazy.
She's a scary woman.
Joanna is nuts.
Yeah, well, during that scene, there was a point where I was just like, I wanted Ellie to just kind of turn around and do a Monty Python and just run down the street or something like that away from her. It was just like, this is like a horror scene just talking to her.
Yeah, so, I mean, I was thinking that it was definitely a strong possibility all throughout season. Well, not all throughout, but like, from halfway back through season 1, I was like, I think he might be Tyrell as well. And then we've got the scene where, I mean, when they finally bring down, F Corp, E Corp, Evil Corp, Tyrell is there at the arcade with him, and like, they're bringing it down, and Tyrell seems pretty happy with that. And there was the gun and the popcorn. And, didn't
Darlene put that gun in the popcorn? And how does Elliot know about that, if so?
I think he found it, and that could be a minor plot hole too. Because normally when you're getting popcorn out, I mean, he found it when he was digging in the machine to get popcorn. But, I mean, I've gotten popcorn before, and I don't necessarily dig to the bottom to get my popcorn, because that's where you're going to find all the unpopped kernels. I go for the top.
And the guns as well, apparently.
Yeah, kernels and guns.
Especially in America, popcorn and guns for everybody.
So I mean, he finds it there by accident, just getting popcorn, because man, Who doesn't like it? But we're, it seems like he was going to get that gun to use on Tyrell, whether he was going to actually shoot him or just threaten him or whatever. And then the season ends. And we come back to season 2, to the opener. And, before I noticed that they were talking about Tyrell Wellick as the person, I mean, they mentioned it, but I guess I missed it at first, or I just wasn't thinking about it. We see Mr. Robot, like Elliot has now, to skip ahead to season 2 a little bit, Elliot is avoiding all technology at the opening of season 2. He's detoxing himself from the internet and from technology. He's writing in a journal. And Mr. Robot's not happy about this, and he shows up and he's yelling at him. And Elliot's like, "Quit yelling at me, Dad." And, "No, Dad, what about you?"
You're not my real dad.
And Mr. Robot pulls a gun on Elliot. And Elliot's like, "What are you going to do, shoot me?" But before he can finish that sentence, Mr. Robot shoots him in the head. And we see blood. We see the pink mist in the back of Elliot's head. And Elliot collapses on the bed. And you're just like, fuck, what's happening here? And then Elliot sits up with a bullet hole in his head. He's like, "Are you happy you shot me in the head?" Because, again, this is happening in his twisted mind, because he's got issues. But that was when I thought, for sure, I was like, okay, man, absolutely, Elliot is Tyrell Wellick, because he just did to Tyrell Wellick what Mr. Robot did to him. And, bringing it back again to Fight Club, just like, the narrator did to himself.
Right.
So I was sure then. I was like, okay, I'm positive now. He is Tyrell Wellick. But then they're talking about Obama. President Barack Obama is talking about Tyrell Wellick.
Tyrell Wellick, yeah.
And how, we know that he was responsible for the F Society hack and the financial crisis that's occurring because of this. And, man, too many people who are important know who Elliot is, like Gideon, his old boss from Allsafe. So
right.
You would think that if Tyrell Wellick is missing after basically fucking the world, his picture is going to be on the television.
Yeah, and Gideon has met Tyrell Wellick. And, I mean, even in the finale last season, Elliot goes to the office to see Tyrell Wellick, and the secretary, when he asks for her, isn't like, well, that, you got fired. It's, Tyrell Wellick, it doesn't work here anymore. I mean, it's clearly a different person.
Yeah. But
now, whether Elliot killed him or not, that's another question. I still think there's a possibility Elliot might have killed him, and then the phone call at the end of last night is, another figment of his imagination or something. But I'm still wondering if Tyrell Wellick is dead or not.
2 phone calls at the end of the night, potentially Tyrell Wellick.
Right, though Elliot, I guess, could have sent her that cell phone and called himself as well.
Yeah, he could have, because Elliot's got issues, man.
Yeah. A couple.
Joanne is crazy, man. She is.
Well, she likes to get beat up, apparently. It's we know that about her.
Yeah. All right, so basically season 1 culminates in the successful hack of Evil Corp, and they own, I forget how much of the world's debt. They say it at some point in last night's episode. It was quite a lot.
Yeah.
So they pull off a successful hack. They've destroyed the physical records. That was the whole break-in into Steel Mountain. So they've got tape backups of their of all the records and stuff. So they needed to destroy them. And so it works, man. They take out people's debt, gone overnight. You no longer owe anybody anything. The world is a much better place, and everybody is on equal footing. And when we come to season 2, man, we find out that is not the fucking case. It sounds good in theory, but now people are just fucked.
Right, and should people be on, as I wondered and thought even after last season is, do we really want everybody on equal ground as far as debt? I mean, do we want, like, they had the scene where they're at the Corp bank or the E-bank, and there's the woman who's trying to make her payment for her mortgage, and she's made all her payments for whatever it's been, 20, 30 years or whatever, and now suddenly there's no record of that, and she's on the same footing as maybe somebody who had their debt wiped out and is happy to have it wiped out because they bought a car that they couldn't afford, and maxed out their credit cards, and not everybody should be on the same footing as debt. There needs to be debt. People need to pay their debts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things like I think Elliot's inspiration, at least early on, towards wiping it out, was I think partially like Angela and her college debt. And, I could see that, even though that's a choice you make, and you take on that debt and you have to pay it. Though, I mean, college costs in this country are obviously out of control and unrealistic. So, I mean, I could see making an argument for wanting to wipe that out if there was like a separate way to do that, but there's no way to do that. And so, yeah, it's not equitable for everybody, and there's going to be repercussions. I mean, and people can't access their money now, and nothing is working. Everything is broken. And I don't know if that's what Darlene is talking about. Do you think that's what she means when she says now it's worse than it was before?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I think that they thought that, like, it was just going to be beautiful, and, like, the world would wake up and it's just like, hey, nobody owes anybody anything, and we're cool. I also want to bring up, I mean, part of the reason they're also after Evil Corp, aside from just wanting to free people from debt, is Evil Corp being an evil corp. They're definitely complicit with the death of Elliot's father, Mr. Robot, and Angela's mother.
Right, the toxic waste dump.
Right. So that's definitely a part of it. And, the medical bills, they talk about Angela's mother's medical bills for, definitely, like, really hurt the family. We don't really hear too much about, not that I remember, Mr. Robot's medical bills. What was his name before he became Mr. Robot? Maybe we should call him, Mr. I keep wanting to say Anderson. It's not Anderson. Alderson.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing, if they ever actually mentioned his real name last season, and I don't recall. I don't recall them doing so. So yeah, I was just thinking of him as Mr. A, I guess, Mr. Alderson.
Mr. Alderson.
Yeah.
Edward Alderson. I looked it up really quick. I don't know if they actually even mentioned it, though. I mean, I looked it up, but I don't know that anyone actually ever said Edward Alderson.
I think so, because I did think I heard last night they had that in that little flashback scene where they're in the hospital after Elliot fell out the window. I thought I might have heard the mom calling, saying something like Eddie or something, but I couldn't quite make it out, so that would make sense.
Yeah. Well, Elliot didn't fall out a window. Mr. Robot, or
right.
Actually, Edward Alderson knocked him out a window.
Do we know that for sure?
I think we do, and it wasn't intentional. The story when Elliot's father, Eddie Alderson, got sick, I guess he didn't want to tell anyone in the family, but Elliot knew, and Elliot said something to the mother, and the way, if we're to trust Elliot's memory and Elliot's narration, it was his father, like, lashed out. Didn't mean to push him out a window, but kind of just, like, pushed. He went to hug him. He went to hug his father because his father had leukemia from Evil Corp. And his father, being angry and mad that Elliot ratted out on him that he had leukemia, pushed him, and he accidentally fell out the window. I mean, it was an accident. He wasn't trying to kill him, unlike when Mr. Robot pushed Elliot off the pier.
Yeah.
Which it wasn't, again, what probably wasn't trying to kill him, but, that was definitely intentional. Yeah, but I mean, he definitely pushed him out the window, and Elliot broke his arm and did not allegedly suffer brain damage. They're just like, well, his brain's good, no lesions, no.
Right, just a broken arm, and mom's worried about, you know, whether they really how they're going to pay for that.
Right.
And going back to that peer push in season 1, I don't recall it myself. I haven't been there enough. But you being a Brooklyn, Coney Island kid, are there piers that would be that big enough to cause that much damage if you were pushed off? I don't remember there being that much of a gap between like the piers and the sand and everything. There might be rocky areas underneath, maybe. Is that?
There are definitely piers that are high enough to do that. Yeah, the boardwalk. There's definitely places where it's a lot higher. And it does get kind of rocky here and there. Quite often, I mean, I don't know if this is like strictly erosion or just like when the sand gets like pushed out enough. I mean, they'll come and they'll basically like they'll put sand, like just a shit ton of sand, like right next to the boardwalk. So it's like you could go like one summer and you're looking at like a 30, 40-foot drop, maybe let's say 30-foot drop to the beach. And then you go back the next summer, and it's now like a 5-foot drop. And eventually, like you come back a couple summers later, it's going to be a big drop again.
All right.
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely places on the boardwalk where it gets rather high.
Now, are there security cameras up there? Because later on, we see Elliot at that internet cafe where he beats up on himself and does a little bit of a Fight Club scene, where he's kind of looking at video and he's putting the pieces together, and he sees that video of himself kind of tossing himself off that pier. Where was that supposed to have originated from, that video that he's watching? From the other side of the skateboarders?
It's been too long since I've seen Coney Island. There are more and more video cameras, like, you know, all over the place every day, security cameras. You know, I don't remember exactly what I was thinking when I saw that, but I think I was thinking that, like, as opposed to being an actual like video camera, I was seeing it as like Elliot's mind, like just figuring it out, but in a way that made sense to him, looking at a screen.
So instead of filing or accessing a file on the computer there, he was accessing you know, repressed memory or something.
Yeah. He's accessing reality.
But I love the idea of that Elliot at some point before this was sitting there making a disc to put evidence to convince himself later on of who he really is and what really happened. I just find that very amusing.
Yeah. Elliot, you wacko. And now he's more of a wacko now, I think, maybe. During his
at the end last night, he has the classic crazy laughing, you know, breakdown kind of thing that, you know, we know from movies and TV shows. When people laugh that much and like that, that means they're generally psychotic.
Yeah, I mean, and when we see Mr. Robot shoot Elliot in the head, and Elliot gets back up and is kind of like, "You're done." He writes in his journal, because now he's like writing in a journal with pencil and paper. He writes, "He shot me again." So this is definitely not the first time that Mr. Robot has shot Elliot in the head. And he's coming to terms with that. It's like, I guess, like the first couple times you get shot in the head by your imaginary father, it probably freaks you the fuck out.
Yeah.
But now he doesn't seem as bothered, and he is definitely not really bleeding from the head, not from a bullet wound. But we see blood dripping on things. Like as he's writing in his journal, blood drips onto the journal. And so he takes a bandage and he wraps it around his head. And he's wearing that bandage for the rest of the season opener. He's got this bandage wrapped around his head.
Which at work today did occur to me to strap a bandage around my head and just tell people I was shot in the head. But and that makes me think of now Elliot's new friend. What was his name?
Well, which one? Doug Judy from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or that rapper? His name. He's got a cool ass name.
The rapper with the rapper with the badass.
Joey Badass.
Yeah. No, not. Well, I think of him as dude from The Office, and Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah, definitely Hot Tub Time Machine.
But yeah, no, the Seinfeld stuff, that was obviously very amusing for me, but that felt like
an imaginary character. Do you think that guy might be fake?
Yeah, I think that might be because Elliot is hanging out with this guy. He has breakfast with him and lunch with him, and then they go to watch basketball.
Right, this guy's got no other life except just meals with Elliot and Seinfeld, watching
Seinfeld
episodes.
And like, you like Seinfeld. You're a Seinfeld fan.
Yeah.
I hated the show. But at the same time, I think we can both appreciate Joey Badass, his character is Leon. I think we can both appreciate Leon's take on the show. I think
it's a little simplistic of a take, but yeah.
It is.
Yeah, but the best part was, where I forgot exactly what he says, but something basically along the lines of, he would have taken Kramer out. He would
yeah. But yeah, it's very possible that Leon is imaginary. Because one thing I've noticed, I mean, Leon does get into an altercation with the basketball players during the basketball game. The ball winds up by, his feet. They're just like, yo, man, give me my ball. And, Leon's just like, fuck you when he throws the ball. Elliot says nothing to anybody during this time. Kind of like at a point where Mr. Robot might be talking to somebody and Elliot, no one's actually interacting with Elliot because Elliot's not really, because Elliot's actually Mr. Robot in those scenes. And one thing I noticed was when Doug Judy from The Office, and I should probably find out the character's real name, when Doug Judy from The Office and Hot Tub Time Machine shows up, I don't see Leon. I might be missing him. But when he is talking to Elliot, Leon's not there, and Elliot only goes to these games with Leon.
Right. I think the first time you do see Leon linger, and then just gives him kind of like the head move, like later, I'll catch you later. He doesn't actually say anything. He just kind of gives him that nod and walks away.
Right.
Which, yeah, I thought was a little curious.
Let me find that actor's name. Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah, I knew that name earlier today. I know his name.
Craig Robinson.
Craig Robinson.
Yes, yeah. I mean, yeah, he was great in The Office. He was great in Hot Tub Time Machine and some other movies I've seen him in. But I love him as Doug Judy on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I don't know if do you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
I haven't seen it now.
It's a good show. And he's very funny. He's the Pontiac Bandit, and he shows up once a season to fuck with Andy Samberg, who is trying to catch him, and just wacky shit happens. Brooklyn Nine-Nine's a good show. But anyway, Craig Robinson. What is Craig Robinson's deal, man?
So yeah, apparently he was looking for Elliot to do something with him computer-oriented, though we don't know what. And Mr. Robot then intercedes and does apparently meet up with him and institute something, or starts working with the Craig Robinson character, and that's when Elliot catches on to the fact that he's been still, having blackouts or whatever, forgetting certain periods, when Craig Robinson the next day is like, you really don't remember, do you? And
yeah, it's when Elliot falls asleep, it seems, because he realized that in his journal too. He's like going to sleep now, and then he sees like he left a blank line in the book, which is more just like for us to say, when he says like, there's a gap in my memory. It's not really a gap. You went to sleep, but yeah, no, at the same time, it's a gap. It's when Mr. Robot was able to completely take over, which may have been when Mr. Robot was talking to Tyrell Wellick last season. Yeah, Elliot may have gone to sleep. He may have dozed off.
Yeah, that might make sense. It'd be interesting to rewatch that and see what Elliot was doing in the prior scenes.
And then we also have that scene last night where Elliot is part of his daily routine. Okay, so he has breakfast and lunch with Leon. Leon obviously has nothing better to do than to go to breakfast and lunch and talk about Seinfeld and then go to a basketball game every single day with Elliot, because this is part of his detox routine from the internet and hacking. And he, where was I going with this? His routine, some of his routine. Oh, he goes to a church group.
Yeah.
Every day he goes to a church group. At first, when he mentioned a church group, I mean, I thought it was going to be like, like Fight Club, it was going to be a, some sort of like support group. The narrator went to all these like support groups. But this seems like an actual like Bible study group that he goes to.
Yeah, no, they were definitely quoting some biblical passages in there. Now, this is where the theory I saw floated a couple of times today comes in, which then wasn't related to what I had mentioned prior, but I was trying to kind of connect the dots. But some people were taking his whole rigid schedule as a basically very prison-like. I mean, including, with basketball cards, a church service, being part of he had a cleaning routine at 2 times during the day. He spends all his meals sitting across from the same person, basically. Maybe even spending those times watching Seinfeld reruns instead of actually talking to somebody.
He's living with his mother, who is like a fucking warden.
Who is an authority figure for him. He even says to the psychologist Christine that she's she's the most rigid person that he knows. And he mentions Darlene, who comes by sometimes for visits. Well, could those be basically prison visits? She's visiting him in jail, which maybe then I started connecting, and I didn't see anybody else do this, but I started connecting that to me wondering, how does he not wind up in jail over the prison break last year? And well, what if maybe he did?
He's in jail. Holy shit. That's a hell of a theory. That's a very good theory.
But then how does that play into everything else going on independent of him? I mean, did the F Society hack then still happen? Because if he went to jail for my thing with the prison riots, that would have been before the hack. Did somebody else do the hack? Is the hack, is everything we see with Darlene and the woman from E-Corps' smart house and that, I mean, is that still going on? That's, you believe that's still happening, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's possible that, I mean, they were kind of careful with the jailbreak. Not extremely careful because, Shayla's life was on the line. But, I mean, Elliot's not stupid. But it could be that they just didn't catch Elliot until after the hack. And that also could be another reason why Darlene... Well, I mean, she's definitely upset about the situation that her and F Society has created. But, I mean, she's really barely holding it together when we first see her in the smart house. That could be part of it, too. It's like it could be because, she needs Elliot and Elliot can't help her. And so what does everybody want from him? What does Craig Robinson, what's his character's name? Do we know?
Don't recall. I think they mentioned the dog's name, Maxine, right?
Yeah.
Maxine is the dog.
Yeah.
So let's go with Maxine's owner.
Okay, so Maxine's owner, I mean, yeah, so he could just be someone else, like talking to Elliot in the I almost said play yard, but it's not a play yard. In the yard of a prison.
Maybe he'll run into Kingpin and the Punisher in there too.
Yeah, so maybe like Mr. Robot, maybe Elliot can get out of this, because Elliot, we've seen, is not just Elliot, like I said, he's a smart guy. He's not just a computer hacker. We've seen him do all these physical hacks with things. He's really smart and he's good at this stuff. So it's very possible that Elliot could break out of jail if he really put his mind to it. And maybe as Mr. Robot, he kind of mentioned this to Maxine's owner. And so that's what Maxine's owner wants, is he wants Elliot's help in breaking out and also to help Elliot break out.
Right, maybe.
Man, maybe.
And then there's also the part of me that also thought back to that maybe it's more of a mental institution that he's in, and thought back to, I think it was the second to last season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where the episode where it's kind of implied that this whole thing has been a hallucination and Buffy's some crazy girl in a psych ward.
That was a good episode of Buffy. The thing I liked the most about it was, I mean, we all know that Buffy the Vampire Slayer is real and that Buffy, was not in a psych ward. But at the same time, it's like they left it like ambiguous at the end of the episode.
And I would have been okay with that. I would have been okay if that was the last episode of the series. I would have been fine with it.
Yeah, because they were just kind of like, well, no, she did it. Now she's crazy. She's going to think she's Buffy forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, either way, man, it's good. We got Buffy.
So I did think about that with Elliot, if he's having that kind of an experience. I mean, I doubt it, but it's the prison theory was making the rounds today. I saw online after last night's episode where everybody kind of took his whole rigid schedule comparing it to a prison-like schedule. And then I thought about my theory about how he should have been arrested by now for the prison break. So,
yeah, no, that's like that is. I haven't been on the internet much today. I've been working, and then I had to go to a union meeting and taking Angela to doctors and stuff. So I missed out on all the. Man, that is an awesome fucking theory. I love it. Wow. I mean, we'll find out. Hopefully, we might not find out until the end of the season. Where else does he go? Has he gone anywhere else? He's gone to see his therapist. Which is a whole other confusing thing.
Which could be happening, in the prison. I'm sure they, some patients or some inmates have to visit with a psychologist here and there, and
especially if it's a mental.
Right. Yeah.
And it's possible that that's the only, because I mean, when I first saw him talking to her, I thought maybe I missed something because I was pretty sure that he really likes her a lot. And he spied on her fiance, and who was a douche. Like the dude was a douche.
Yeah.
And he really went beyond like the role of a normal patient for her. He he was spying on her. He hacked her. He hacked her boyfriend. He made her boyfriend confess to her that that he was a prick.
Took his dog, who, by the way, is also missing. besides Tyrell Wellick, where's Flipper? What happened to Flipper?
Yeah, they're on a beach somewhere together. Maybe Tyrell took Flipper.
Maybe Flipper is with Tyrell Wellick. Maybe yes.
Man.
So where do you think Tyrell Wellick is?
Man, I don't know. It's like he's all right. Here are my things. He's either Elliot, which evidence is not for. Evidence is definitely against that, of Wellick and Elliot being the same person. He's dead because Elliot killed him, which is possible. And maybe Elliot will now become Tyrell Wellick as he descends further into his his issues. Maybe he did send the phone or arranged to have the phone sent to Joanna, and maybe he thinks he's Tyrell Wellick now, like when he's sleeping sometimes. Like he's Mr. Robot sometimes, maybe Tyrell Wellick. Or Tyrell Wellick just went on the lam for whatever reason. Maybe Elliot failed to kill him. And Tyrell Wellick realized that, well, man, see, I don't like that either. I don't like the idea that Tyrell Wellick is now hiding. And I didn't think of it until I was talking about it out loud just now. He knows Gideon, Elliot's old boss, knows that Elliot may have had something to do with this. That was
and he
definitely
dies.
Right, conveniently dies. But also, he was willing to rat Elliot out for his own protection. He didn't want to, and he's not positive that it's involved, but he was willing to go. I would think that Tyrell Wellick I think he would turn Elliot in. Unless, of course, Elliot's already turned in.
Being on the lam makes some sense in that he's got he's got the president on TV mentioning his name as being behind the, he's probably got to keep a low profile, I guess. Although, he was missing right from the get-go before there, I don't think they made any connections. Right when Elliot wakes up in his car after 3 days, and, we don't know what happened during those 3 days. One thing I was thinking about with Terrell and Elliot is what if they're lovers? Does that make any sense to you? I mean, we know Terrell kind of can go both ways.
Yeah.
And there seems to be an odd connection. I always kind of thought maybe when that first scene in the pilot episode where Terrell comes in to the All Safe, I always felt like they kind of were pretending not to know each other, which at first made me wonder if Terrell is in his head too. But now I'm wondering if maybe there was a long-standing, just kind of maybe a homosexual relationship. And the fact that Joanna, his wife, seems to, the way she talks to Elliot in a kind of a knowing way where there's something underneath the surface of the interaction there makes me wonder if there's some prior relationship between the two of them that we don't know about.
Maybe. I mean, that's good too. Man.
Or maybe everything's just what it appears, and he's just in hiding with Flipper until the heat cools down. Not that the heat's ever going to cool down. I don't know how Tyrell Elliott ever can, come out if he's there. I mean, this is, this is the biggest economic downfall and hack in the history of civilization, and they're pinning it on him.
Yeah, they also wanted to pin it on Gideon,
right? Who had evidence to the contrary, and then come back to him now being assassinated at the end. Do you think Elliot could have had something to do with that? Because it seems a little bit convenient, or maybe I should say Mr. Robot had something to do with that. So it seems convenient for him to have Gideon die at that point.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, that was a brutal scene too. I mean, that was I didn't really expect that. I don't know what I expected. That was one of those scenes where something's going to happen, but you don't know what. And I think anything that would have happened in that scene might have just been a surprise.
Yeah, no, I did not see that coming. I thought it was going to be what he thought. I thought this guy was coming on to him and looking to hook up. That's what I thought. Yeah,
because Gideon's gay and he's at a bar. It's not a gay bar; it's just a bar. And the dude walks up to him and he's just like, "Hey, what's up, man? I'm sitting at a bar too." And he's like, "Yeah, I know who you are," because they're talking. He's like, "I know who you are," and it's like, "Yeah, well, okay." So he knows who he is. The people are talking about him as a potential suspect. The FBI is investigating him, so of course, you might know who he is. And he's really kind of friendly. Yeah, like you said, it's like he might have been hitting on him. And then he pulls out a gun and shoots him in the neck and says, "This is for America."
It's like, thank you, I guess. Thank you.
The fuck? I was like, that was a surprising scene.
And he calls him a crisis player. I think that was the term he used, which I didn't realize until today that's apparently that's part of the zeitgeist. That is a term that's been used lately, the crisis player term. I'm still not entirely sure what it means, but it's a thing. They didn't just make that term up for a crisis player.
Yeah, so Gideon's probably dead.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, we didn't see anyone pronounce him dead, but I mean, he was definitely bleeding out on the floor of that bar. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out he's just in critical condition or a coma or something next week, but I'm pretty sure he's probably dead.
Yeah, I think it's definitely implied. It's possible not because he didn't do it in the head. But anytime they don't do it in the head, I guess they're leaving that possibility open. But I think he'll be dead. Yeah,
because, I mean, we see the life leave his eyes. We see the blood pooling out in the snow. And
that's Jon Snow.
Oh, yeah. Damn. My show was mixed up. But yeah, no, I'm pretty sure he's probably going to be dead. We've also got Angela. Let's talk about Angela a little bit. Angela was Elliot's childhood friend and Darlene's. And her, like we said before, her mom died of leukemia also because of Evil Corp.
Right.
And she had been pursuing a lawsuit against Evil Corp. She had a lawyer. She was trying to get information for them. And during last season, somehow she got herself into a meeting with the CEO, Philip Price. I guess just to tell him he's a prick.
Actually, isn't Price the other guy who's working there now? The guy who met with White Rose at the end of the season. Isn't that Price? And the guy, what the hell is his name? Maybe I'm wrong. I thought the guy who originally got fingered for the original hack in season 1 that they blamed it on. I don't think that's Price. I think Price.
Well, the guy they fingered it on was the CTO.
Right, that guy.
Yeah.
So that's not who you're talking about.
No, I'm talking about like the actual the big boss.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right then. That's Price, yeah.
Yeah, I think just to tell him like you're a prick. She wanted to meet with him. Yeah, because I guess you don't get to meet with the CEO very often. You know, they have helicopters that take them from rooftop to rooftop, and unless you're a helicopter pilot, you might not see them very often. But instead of just being like, and he's just like, yeah, you know what, man, I'm a prick. I'm sorry that like bad shit happened, but this is business, and this is the way the business world works. And yeah, man, people get hurt, and man, I'm sorry, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. Do you want a job? And she's like, yeah.
Right, which, I don't know if there was the implication that he was just kind of keeping her close, maybe because at the end of the season and last year when he's meeting with the White Rose guy, who's now dressed like a man, when we see him meet with Elliot, he's dressed like a woman. He seems to indicate that he knows who's behind the hack. He knows the whole story. So if he's telling the truth and if he's right, and he knows it's Elliot, and then he knows Angela and him are lifelong friends, so maybe he's just bringing her in to kind of keep her close as a way of, being closer to Elliot or keeping a closer eye on Elliot or being able to manipulate Elliot down the road in some way, possibly.
Yeah, I definitely see that, man. That's definitely a possibility.
I don't really buy that they just, see some, great value in her. I'm sure she's good at the job and everything, but there's, plenty of people they could hire who are just as good at the job.
Right. Well, it turns out she is very good at it.
Yeah, and she's starting to realize that, but still, there are a lot of people that could handle the job, I'm sure. Why would you want to hire somebody who's got this lifelong vendetta against your company?
Right. Yeah, because she tells Bloomberg to fuck off.
Yeah.
She's working in PR, and they want to interview somebody from Corp. And, they want to be able to ask certain questions. And, of course, like all these companies, before you can talk to anybody, there is a PR person saying, like, you can't ask about this. You can't ask about this. If you ask about this, we walk. And they want to ask all sorts of questions. And she's just like, nope, I'll go to fucking Fox News. I'll go to, MSNBC. And she hangs up on them. And nobody at the office likes her. And that one other girl, not Rebecca, because Rebecca was the other one. I might even have her name wrong. But hot Rebecca. She's just like, oh my God, did you hang up on Melissa? She's like, did you hang up on Bloomberg? And she's just like, fuck you. And so she's like, I'm gonna go tell Melissa. And she's like, man, fucking tell Melissa whatever you want, man. Fuck you. And so she goes and she comes back with Melissa. But as she's coming back, what was she listening to? Angela puts some earphones in while she's waiting for the phone to ring back. She's kind of stressing out, waiting for Bloomberg to call back.
I think it was Sonic Youth, which she was listening to last year.
It was Sonic Youth. Yes, it was Sonic Youth. Thank you.
Yeah, she seems to be a Sonic Youth fan.
It was Bull in the Heather.
Oh, I'll take your word on that. That I'm not sure, but I definitely recognize it as Sonic Youth, and that seems to be her go-to band.
So she's listening to it, and the phone rings just as Melissa's walking up with that other bitch, and Bloomberg's like, yeah, fine. So Melissa looks like she's about to like fucking ream her a new one, and she's just like, yeah, we got fucking Bloomberg, so I'm gonna go get coffee. See ya. And just like leaves them like, stunned. And that's when she tells her lawyer that she's done with like this lawyer shit and this trying to get to the bottom of things. She's good at her job and she likes it, and she's done. Oh, and the lawyer calls her a whore.
Yeah, she gives her the old the old story about the negotiating over the price at this point, and basically calls her a sellout and walks away. Which, I guess it's still debatable as to whether she really is or whether she's just going all in on playing this so she can ingratiate herself deeper.
Which is what I think.
I'm not sure why she would have to do that with the lawyer. I mean, it's unless she feels like evil Corp people are, following her around and bugging her. I'm not sure why she'd have to go quite that far, but or maybe she needs to just convince herself. I don't know.
Or, I mean, and one thing I'm thinking is, like, what if she's no longer planning on doing it through the law? Like, maybe she's just at the point where she's like, I am inside Evil Corp. I'm apparently good at what I can do, and I can actually, like, work my way up. And, man, fuck them. I will destroy them. So maybe she's no longer thinking about just taking them to court and winning a lawsuit. Maybe this is now about actually getting revenge as opposed to just, like, money, which no matter how much she got, I mean, it's not going to be much. There's that scene where F Society has them, they hold them hostage, their data. And they want $5.9 million. And 5.9 is they're using 5.9 as a new 9/11. That's the day of the hack. Right. So she wants $5.9 million, and he's going to bring it to Battery Park. And he's given an F Society mask, like a bike messenger comes up, gives him an F Society mask and tells him, like, burn the money, or, like, we delete all of your shit. So he burns the money. But they mention that when they're talking about whether or not they should do this, their legal counsel, the high-priced lawyer with the smart house, she basically tells them, like, $5.9 million is fucking nothing.
Right, we can find that between the pillows.
Yeah, she literally said that. Right. So, I mean, despite, like, how terrible Angela's mother's death was, I mean, I think the main reason they don't want to settle is because they don't want to admit to doing shit that's fucked up and shady. They don't want to look bad. But at the same time, it's like, it's not really going to hurt them all that much. This is going to be a PR nightmare, which right now they're in the middle of. So I think maybe she realizes that, like, it's not really going to hurt them to drag their name through the mud. It's already there. The money isn't going to hurt them. But maybe she's got a new idea of how to fuck them over.
Maybe she may work her way to the top. Maybe it's basically she's following my plan for taking down the church, becoming Pope and taking them down from the inside.
That could be it.
Yeah.
I'm the Pope. She wants to be the Pope of PR. And, and the higher she gets up in PR, man, the more dirt she's eventually probably going to discover about them, too, because you got to know about the dirt if you're in PR. You got to know when to say no comment and when to say, like, I don't know. She's in there.
Yeah.
And we don't see her dancing with Darlene. Her and Darlene took a ballet class together. We don't see that now anymore.
No, yeah, as far as we know, I doubt Darlene's going to ballet these days herself.
Yeah.
But
yeah. She's too busy wrecking smart houses and leading F Society, which has grown.
Yeah, although I think that's one of the things she's disappointed with, that the growth just seems to be full of a lot of maybe, frat boy type people just looking to, party and lay waste to things and carry on rather than do anything constructive. And she tries to kind of take some control over it and start getting a little plan together towards the end of that. I'm wondering how long they think they can hold up there. How long is it going to be before somebody would come and fix a smart house? What does it take to fix a smart house?
Yeah, and I was like, what if she comes back because she's like, I didn't grab enough underwear.
I think there was an allusion to
malfunctioning smart house long enough to grab a pair of socks.
Right. Although I think they did say something. There was one quick little reference to having. I think they did something to her cell phone, so they're tracking her. So maybe, you know, if she comes nearby, I guess, I don't know if they all just suddenly clear out the place or what. But
Do they have
apparently
a
they can track.
flag?
Yeah, they hung a flag. That'd be hard to blame on a smart house malfunction or glitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they'd have to have a little bit of a heads up there. But supposedly, I think they're able to track her movement. I think somebody referenced, you know, where she was when she was heading towards Greenwich or whatever it was that night, that they could track it. So yeah, but they'd have to be pretty ahead of the game to clean that place up.
Man, but that was cool. The smart house hack was cool. Man, this is why you do not want a smart house.
I wasn't sure what was happening there. I was just like, this is a cool fucking house until the thing starts, you know, going all HAL 9000 on her. Yeah.
Yeah, for a moment when I mean, because unfortunately I have not rewatched season 1 of Mr. Robot since it aired. You know, I kept meaning to, whether I was going to download it illegally or actually buy it or find it. The point is, I didn't watch it, and for a moment, you know, I forgot what Joanna looked like, and I thought this was Joanna at first, and you know, I was like, yeah, Joanna's got a nice house and she's doing Joanna stuff, and it wasn't. So at first, I thought like, this is Tyrell, like
right,
trying to contact her until bad stuff started happening. And then I realized, like, about halfway through that, I was like, well, I don't even know who the fuck this is. It's not Joanna.
Right.
I don't know who this is.
I don't know if I thought of Joanna, but yeah, at first my reaction was, do we know her? Is she somebody? Is she familiar? I wasn't sure what was going on there either. And if we had ever seen her before or not. And then later on I was able to kind of piece it together. I didn't think it was Joanna, but I was wondering if it was somebody we knew. Now, as far as new characters go, there is one other, which kind of blows a hole in the whole Elliot's in prison theory, because it appears to be a federal investigator. This woman, I don't know if we did. It was it was an Italian-sounding last name. She had like DiPietro or something like that.
Yeah.
And basically, she's on the case investigating, and apparently, she's going to be a big player in the season. So I'm guessing she's going to be closing in on Elliot and investigating him at some point. And by the way, the actress who was on Newsroom last year, and I didn't realize at the time, is actually Meryl Streep's daughter.
Really?
Yeah.
She's definitely very cute, and I liked her. I like that whole scene she goes into a bodega kind of store, and she's buying a whole bunch of stuff, and she's grabbing like 5 Hour Energy, like they're going out of style, and she's talking to the Iranian clerk, asking about his family and stuff. You know, she's friendly, and someone in line looks like a real dick to her. And she calls him a dickhead in Iranian, which is how I know the dude was Iranian, because it says, like, you know, the subtitle is like Iranian dickhead. But yeah, she seemed cool, and then she grabbed that lollipop. She didn't do anything really cool with the lollipop. She just ate it later. But
I think they mentioned, I was only half watching as I was falling asleep last night after the show. They had this hacking robot thing on USA afterwards, where they had Andy Greenwald sitting there with the cast and Sam Ismail, and I think they said that the guy who was standing behind her in line he actually did a famous hack. I don't know if it was Ashley Madison or not Ashley, was it? I don't remember what it was, but he was involved in one of the more famous hacks in the last couple of years. So he's a pretty established famous hacker who was making a cameo behind her in line there.
Yeah, I like her. Now, I mean, she was investigating Gideon.
Right, at that point, but...
Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to blow a hole in the Elliot's in jail theory. He could still be in jail for something else.
Just the fact that, I mean, it's been stated that she's going to be a big player in season 2, and that she's going to be a regular in the show now. I'm thinking that means there's going to be an ongoing investigation, and you would think that's got to lead towards Elliot, especially now that Gideon's out of the way. Unless it's going to be all Tyrell Wellick related, which I guess is possible too. I think the prison thing is probably not really happening, and she'll be on to Elliot at some point. That'd be my guess.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the hacker, I didn't know that was a famous hacker in line behind her, but this is possibly the best show about people doing stuff on computers, best show or sort of media thing. Everything is very realistic. It's awesome how real it is. I mean, I'm not a hacker. I don't know hacking from anybody, but even, back in the late 90s, I knew enough about hacking to know that movie Hackers was completely bullshit. Anytime you see someone hacking something, Jurassic Park, when the little girl is hacking the mainframe, it's always something ridiculous, and it's always, this is very real. This is like realistic shit. I mean, I don't know how real the stuff we're seeing on the screen actually is. We probably, or maybe we could take screenshots and hack things ourselves. But I mean, this is not.
Well,
do you wish to hack the thing? Yes, no.
I know that they've actually, spent time, actually making sure all those screens and everything you see are, pretty legitimate. They're not just, random nonsense they've thrown together. Whether you could do those kind of hacks with them, I don't know. I certainly don't know if there's, they talk about rootkits and onion protocols and all this kind of stuff like that. I have no fucking idea what they're talking about. It sounds good to me, and I hear other people who know more about this, like yourself, saying it's all, has a definite legitimacy to it. So I'll take their word for it. And Sam Esmail himself, I guess, used to do a bit of this back in his younger days as well. So.
Yeah, I know what all these things are. I would have no idea how to use them, but I like to read about this stuff. I read a lot of things about what hackers are up to. Not because I'm interested in hacking. It just happens to, Wired. I mean, other magazines I read, other articles I read, stuff comes up. Like when Darlene gets accused of being a script kiddie last season. And those are, that's something I've heard of as well. Those are the people who go online and you just find someone else's script that lets you hack into a thing. Usually a minor thing. It's but they call those people script kiddies because they're not actually hacking anything, not actually coding anything. They're just taking a program just like we're using a program right now and they're just activating it. That's more of a yes, no. Do you want to hack like Facebook? Yes, no.
Well, in the old days of the internet, I mean, basically, anybody could have done that, right? There was easy ways to just go in and copy the code, right? I don't know if you can still do that.
Oh yeah, you can copy it. The code is now a lot more difficult. Early days of web. I mean, that's how I learned web programming. I didn't actually learn HTML in a traditional sense. I don't know anyone who did, to be honest. I don't know anyone. I mean, I know that there are people who go to school for that. But yeah, you would just you'd look at the website's code and you'd copy it and you'd look at it and you'd fuck with it. And you're just like, oh, this is what makes this happen. And then you could adjust it to your own things. I do a little bit of that with PHP. Not a lot because it's definitely more complicated and I don't have the kind of time or energy to learning PHP. But yeah, basically yes. I'm saying yes to you.
I like that one thing was called a Raspberry Pi. I like that. I think they should name basically all these things after some kind of a dessert. I think that would make it a lot easier for me to remember. like the Android. The different versions of Android. Each one is a candy or a dessert. Anyway, the new one's going to be nougat. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Oh yeah. It was donut, lollipop, marshmallow was the more recent one, and the new one is going to be nougat. Oh, they just I mean, I have a Droid, but it must have been before they started doing that. No, they've been doing that. They've been doing that forever. But I mean, that's what they call the version. You're not necessarily going to see it unless you're really following Android's updates, like reading about them. I mean, you're not necessarily going to know that because they're still just going to call it 6.0, 7.0, but it all has a code name. You might be running Marshmallow. Well, that's sounds delicious, but yeah, I don't know. This doesn't mean anything to me if they're not going to call it that.
But yeah, they should. I mean, people who are really into it do call it that. It's thing marshmallow. And I see a lot of stuff about like the new phones coming out. They'll all be running nougat because that's the new one. Which, you know, nougat, I like nougat, but it doesn't sound as delicious to me as donuts, lollipops, or marshmallows.
Or pies. I think we should have more pie-centered.
Yeah, absolutely.
Computer things, yeah.
Raspberry pies. So, where did we end up last night? Gideon gets killed, possibly, probably. Where did we leave Elliot last night? I can't remember for the life of me. Where did we leave him?
On the phone, Bonjour, Elliot.
Yes. Oh my, which is a Tyrell thing.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's right. That's where we left him. We got to see Joanna. We got to see her sick love life, abusive, cutting with knives, slap me around. I'm gonna take a bath. You go away now. And yeah, we get to see her go. She goes home with the baby, and she gets that phone with that little music box. And Elliot, back to Elliot falling asleep and Mr. Robot taking over. So anyway, Joanna goes to the baby's crying, so she goes to go check on the baby, and we see that on the little video monitor of the baby monitor. And as she does that, she misses a call. She gets one missed call from an unknown number. And then Elliot had fallen asleep at church.
The church meeting, yeah. Yeah, as soon as he nods off, I think they quick cut edit to him on the phone.
Yeah, and he's like confused. He's like, how the fuck did I get here? And it was a red phone. It was like the bat phone.
Yeah, I noticed that, yeah. And he had definitely made the call. The first time I didn't remember what, but then I watched it again, and yeah, he had made the call because he was waiting for somebody to pick up, and it was ringing and ringing. It wasn't that Tyrell called him, so it was definitely, I guess, you know, in Mr. Robot persona, making the phone call and then handing it off to Elliot.
Right. Or it could have been, because I'm not completely down on this theory yet, it could have been Tyrell making the phone call and then handing it off to Elliot.
True. Yeah, I guess.
I mean, again, odds are still low. I mean, I really don't think that's the case, but the theory is not dead in my head yet.
Right, and you know, which even if it wasn't true from the get-go, I mean, it could be if he did kill him at the end of last season. Maybe now he is taking on that persona as well, and you know, he's going to be Tyrell as well as his dad, and possibly the Seinfeld watching buddy there in the diner.
Man, now the red bat phone. I just thought last night, I was like, that's a funny phone. It's like the bat phone. Hey. You know, now talking about, I mean, I've never been in prison. I don't know what their phones are like. But I mean, that was that whole scene, the scenery, the location was weird, and that phone was weird. Man, maybe that's a prison or a mental institution phone.
Maybe, though the background still looked like it was in the house. But yeah, I mean, he could be transposing it onto whatever, you know, imaginary scenario he thinks he's in. You know, as the lines blur between reality and what's in his mind, maybe. I mean, it doesn't seem to me like they would have red phones in a prison, but why not? I guess they could have red phones in a prison. It seems kind of nice for a prison, but
yeah.
You know,
or I mean, it just could be his head again, because I mean, I'm loving this like prison theory so much. The meeting when Gideon comes to his house. I mean, Gideon could have been visiting him in a prison. Right. And when he gets loud, like, you know, like the mother turns around just like a jail guard would. And it's like, no touching.
Yeah.
Man.
And Leon is the Seinfeld watching guy. Leon could be his, you know, whatever. It's his cellmate or just a guy he just eats with every day in the cafeteria. You know. And who knows, maybe they're actually just, there's a TV in there, whether at that time of the day there's Seinfeld reruns playing, maybe even.
People love Seinfeld.
Hell yeah, who doesn't love Seinfeld?
Me.
Oh, you don't love Seinfeld.
Like the only
Actually,
one.
No, you're actually not. No, I have a few friends who dislike Seinfeld, the show and the person. I'm not crazy about the person, but I love the show. But yeah, I know a few people who didn't like the show. At least, actually, 3 people I like very much, other than you, who really despise the show.
There's just something about it, man. It's like, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. If it was the George and Elaine show, I probably would have liked it. I mean, I don't like Seinfeld, the character or the comedian. I don't like him. Although, I've heard people have told me, like, even if you don't like Seinfeld, Coffee and Cars with Comedians or whatever it is, I've heard that I would like that. Yeah. So I keep meaning to catch it.
It's very addictive. Oh, if you haven't watched it yet, then there's tons of them on there now at this point for you to watch. They're good. I mean, if you don't like Seinfeld, though, I could see that bothering you more just because his kind of he's a little arrogant and aloof, and that comes off more, I think, there than it did on the show. In the show, but they play to it on the show where it's a good foil to George and all the craziness around him, where he's got to be a little bit kind of, aloof from it all, a little bit detached from it all. But in the comedians, the actual Jerry Seinfeld, I'm better than everybody else. I'm a legendary comedian, and comedians are smarter than everybody. It all kinds of comes off a little bit. A little too much at times. It's still great. I mean, just watching, 2 funny people sit and have coffee for 20 minutes and talk about stuff, shoot the shit. It's great. I love it. But sometimes there are moments where, I roll my eyes and think, just shut up, Jerry.
To me, he's like the thinking man's Chevy Chase. Because I also hate Chevy Chase for the same reasons. And I think that's why Chevy Chase is actually awesome in Community. It's like if Chevy Chase was smart or smarter, if he was funnier and smarter, like he'd be like a Seinfeld.
Yeah, thinking man's Chevy Chase. I'm not even sure if that's a compliment or not, saying thinking man's Chevy Chase. That might be worse than saying he was Chevy Chase. I don't know. I never had a problem with Chevy Chase until he had his talk show, which back in the 80s, I'm still holding a grudge. It was awful. And he was awful, yeah. And the one episode I saw, it's like he asked someone a question. It was like watching Space Ghost Coast to Coast. He asked the guest a question, and as the guest was starting to answer, because he had that little keyboard in front of him, and the guest started to answer me, he started doodling around on his keyboard, and I was like, what a fucking prick! And I never watched it again. I think at that point, that's when I decided that Pat Sajak's talk show should get an Emmy. Oh, what was that? The 80s? Is it that long ago when Chevy Chase had that show? It was like late 80s, early 90s at the latest. It was. I can't. Man, all right. Let me look this one up. Chevy Chase's talk show. Goodbye, Craig. Was it before or after the Larry Sanders show? After, because that was definitely 80s. Chevy Chase. No, Larry Sanders is 90s. You're thinking the Gary Shandling show was 80s. That's what I'm thinking. Yes, I'm thinking the Gary Shandling show. Larry Sanders' show was HBO 90s. I think Gary Shandling was Showtime, if I remember. Are they really just not going to this show? I know it existed. It's not on Google? They erased the Google memory of Chevy Chase's show? Oh my God, 93. Definitely later than I thought. Yeah, that is. Yeah, it seems like it was long. It does seem like it was an 80s thing. I could have sworn it was an 80s thing, man. No, it's 1993. So yeah, it seemed like him, Joan Rivers and a bunch of people, Pat Sajak, and yeah, they were just giving shows to everybody at that point. And Johnny Carson was getting pissed at all of them. And I'm looking for Pat Sajak's television show. When was that on? It's not even on his Wikipedia. And not that that's a. I don't know if it was at the same time, but I mean, people forget that Jon Stewart had a talk show around there too, and which I really liked, and I watched at the time, and which is why when he got the Daily Show, I said I'm going to give this a shot here. I'm going to watch this, and I really liked him on his talk show. And I don't remember if it was around that same time period when everybody was getting them. Pat Sajak's was from January 9th, 1989 to January 10th, 1989. All right, so he was 80s.
No, yeah, 89 to April of 1990. So he made it 4 months.
Which was probably as long as he deserved.
Yeah, longer.
And did he quit Wheel of Fortune during that time and go back, or was he doing both? I want to say he quit, right? Maybe not, though. I'm sure that's something you can just do on your offhand hours.
Yeah, it doesn't say, and I'm not going to go too far into looking it up. I might look it up later, and we can talk about it next week. But so this is the format of the show. We're going to talk about Mr. Robot, and then we're going to talk about terrible talk show hosts.
Except Jon Stewart, who was awesome.
Jon Stewart is awesome.
And even his talk show that nobody watched was awesome.
Yeah, I saw like 1 or 2 episodes of it, and I liked it.
No, I think didn't he have 2? I seem to remember one on MTV and then one like on channel WOR at the time, Channel 9 or whatever it was. Maybe it was the same show.
It might be MTV I'm thinking of, because that was back when MTV was actually like a station I could watch.
Right, when they actually had when they actually did the M part, the music part.
Yeah.
It wasn't just TV.
Fucking MTV.
Yeah, until the Osbournes kind of started to decline downward into what it is now, I think. Even though I loved the Osbournes at the time, until it started, it became, I think it kind of became, well, I guess The Real World was really the beginning of the reality show epidemic.
Yeah, the first couple of seasons, I mean, not that I ever liked The Real World all that much, but the first couple of seasons at least kind of fit into the MTV image. And then it just started getting like ridiculous.
And that it was new, I guess, and there was a little bit of, it was edgy, I guess. At the time you could fool yourself into thinking this was like a real-time thing, unfiltered, unadulterated, unedited. Later on we realized that all this stuff is, or not all of it, but a lot of it is kind of planned, and they're kind of led, and they're kind of pushed in directions, and they're edited, and they play up the drama and all that. But yeah, at the first couple of years there was that little bit of an allusion to reality TV where you were watching something completely different and unique and real, and I think there was a musician in that first house in New York City. And
yeah, there was, and I saw his band. I don't think I would have seen his band though if it wasn't for, because it was after Real World, and he was playing at a local club in Brooklyn, and
it was Andre. Andre was his name.
Yeah, and the band was like Rain Children or Rain Dance or
Rain Dance. I think you're right. I think it was Rain Dance. I think that rings a bell. Yeah.
It was something like that. Real World Season 1. Here we go. Wow, they're on Season 31? That's insane to me.
They must do more than one a year then.
They have to.
Yeah, because it wasn't 31 years ago.
Let me look. Oh.
It's like early 90s, I think, was the first one.
Cast. What is this? This isn't this cast, is it? The first year? Yeah, okay. Andre. He doesn't have his own Wikipedia entry.
Which would make sense. He was the one that never was there. He would just always leave the house.
Yeah, it was called Rain Dance, but it was spelled rain as in a king, like REIGN dance.
Oh.
Oh, man. Described as MTV as the prototypical Gen X guy.
I don't know about the prototypical, but he had, the thing I always liked about him was that he just was never there. He was just, everybody got on the show to be on TV, and then once he was there on TV, he never wanted to be there on TV.
Yeah, and like I said, out of everybody, when I pulled it up on the Wikipedia, it's you see the cast, and almost everybody has their own Wikipedia entry. He does not. So...
Well, that seems appropriate.
Neither does Julie Gentry, who I don't remember, but she was a Southern girl and an aspiring dancer.
She was the Alabama girl. It's sad that I remember. Sad that I know that. I remember her name. I remember where she was from.
Her father wanted her to be a computer expert. Maybe we can convince them to get her on Mr. Robot.
I don't think she could. You know, maybe. I doubt she can act. For some reason, I doubt it. She seems like the kind of person that went back to Alabama and just did nothing in the dramatic arts field at all. I don't know. As opposed to the guy that she was, the city boy who was into her, they tried to hook up, who was definitely pushing very hard to be famous and get involved in various media. I can't remember his name. But he was a good-looking guy, but he didn't really have any appreciable talent. But for a while, MTV kept like having him host every show, and it was all over the place. Can't remember the name, but I do remember Andre and Julie. I do remember that.
Yeah, I remember him. And like I said, we went to go see his band, which we would not have done had he not been, on MTV's Real World. I mean, like if someone said, "Hey, do you want to go see Rain Dance?" I think it was at Christopher's, although I'm not 100%. I probably would have been like, what is that? No, I don't want to go see that. But it was like, oh, the dude from like the Real World? Yeah, I'll go see it, man, sure. Not that I like him, but hey, the Real World.
Yeah, were they any good?
I don't think so. I think they were completely typical of most bands of that time that weren't like good.
Which to me, everybody from that era who was like a struggling band trying to make it, who wasn't that good or whatever, to me they all sound like Silverchair. I think of them all as just Silverchair. Yeah,
exactly. And that was kind of like what they were. Like most of the bands that we saw at this place were like that.
Like Silverchair was the real shitty band that made it and shouldn't have made it because they were just as shitty as the bands that didn't make it. Or maybe Nickelback, but I mean Silverchair had more of that same sound, I think, than Nickelback was more, I think, aping a certain kind of, I don't know, I guess Pearl Jam and various Stone Temple Pilots sound that they were trying to go. Whereas Silverchair had more of the generic kind of just underground rock.
Oh my God! Speaking of Pearl Jam and bad music,
what?
No. This is not an unfair comparison. This is not unfair to Pearl Jam. It's unfair to another band, very famous band. I recently was supposed to go on a date with some girl I met online, and she stood me up. We'll get that out of the way.
Was it Scott Stipe?
No. But she was very into the Dave Matthews Band, like very into Dave Matthews. Like she's seen Dave Matthews every year since '97. Loved Dave Matthews. She listens to a Dave Matthews podcast. So. Not because I want to get into Dave Matthews, because I've heard Dave Matthews music and I'm not a fan. I don't hate it, but I definitely don't like it. I'm kind of neutral on it. But so I decided, if I'm going to hang out with this girl, I might have to listen to a lot of Dave Matthews. Let me listen to like a Dave Matthews playlist on my, on my iTunes. They got kind of like their own music service now. I said, let me listen to this, and I'll see if there's like some songs that I like that I can, try to bond with this girl over. I'll be like, I like that song. And I was listening to this whole playlist, man, and I realized that Dave Matthews for me is like bad Pearl Jam adult contemporary.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, because there were certain things I was like, if Pearl Jam was a bunch of like middle-aged dudes, I mean they are, but they were a bunch of like middle-aged dudes, in their prime, and yeah, man, some of my friends really love Dave Matthews Band, man. He's got a couple songs that I like, but I mean I can't see the massive appeal for the Dave Matthews Band.
Probably the most Dave Matthews, speaking of some of your friends, probably the most Dave Matthews I ever heard was just times visiting Drew when he lived up here, and he'd be playing a lot of Dave Matthews.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah,
we took a 2-hour road trip. He's playing like Dave Matthews live albums. I was just like, yeah, can we listen to something else? And he was like, you don't like this? Listen to those drums.
He would have live concerts, live Dave Matthews concerts on at his house when Josh was living there. Go in and he'd be watching live Dave Matthews concerts.
Yeah, I mean, I love him, but oh man, don't love Dave Matthews. And I told him how much this girl loved Dave Matthews. I was like, yeah, dude, I said, you'd find this interesting. I'm going on a date with a girl. She's really into Dave Matthews Band. She sounds awesome. Yeah, well, she stood me up, so.
Did she really stand you up? She didn't show up?
Dude, not only did she not show up, she like scorched the earth to like erase all trace that she ever existed. Like, I mean, she friended me on Facebook. The idea to go on a date was her idea to go on this date. Like, I was willing to wait a little while, get to know her better. She was like, "What are you doing this week?" I have some open nights. And I was like, "I don't know, I'll do something near you maybe." So, and then right up until like I left the house, I was like, "I'm leaving the house. Google tells me it's going to be half an hour. So I'll see you then." She's like, "Okay." And so I get there to this bar. It's pretty cool. You know, I get myself a beer and I'm sitting there. And then after a little while, I realize like an hour has passed. And I'm just like listening to this like open mic thing. So I texted her and I was like, "Hey, like everything all right?" Man, like no answer. So,
Man.
and she has an iPhone like me. So it's like with the iPhone, you know, it's like you get the blue in the iMessenger thing. But it was sending as regular text messages, which I thought was like, at first I was like, maybe there's like a bad Wi-Fi signal here at the, maybe I'm getting bad phone signal, bad Wi-Fi at this place. And so maybe she's not getting the messages. Maybe I didn't get a message from her that she tried to send. So I go out into like the driveway and I look on Facebook and man, profile blocked. Everything, every piece of social media, the website I met her on, she is like gone. And I was like, man, like just saying I'm not ready for this or like I changed my mind or I'm not feeling well, like maybe some other, man, that would have been fine.
Yeah.
But no, man, she was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll see you soon." And then bam, scorched earth, like she didn't exist.
That's weird. That's messed up, man.
She's my Mr. Robot.
See, a Pearl Jam fan wouldn't have done that to you.
No, hell no, right? Pearl Jam fans got class.
Hells yeah. And they can't find a better man, so.
No. She lied and said she was in love with me. She didn't. She never said that. I almost told her, like, "Hey, if I tell you I love you, I'll get a text message. Like, don't freak out. I'm probably not talking to you. I'm probably talking to my daughter." And, like, you know, sometimes I get texts mixed up. I text Ange other people's stuff, and I text other people's stuff Ange. Because, you know, if it pops up on a notification, like Ange says, like, you know, "I love you," and it's like in a notification. If I just open up the Messenger app and I was talking to somebody else, like, I just text back, and then, you know, someone's like,
you did that. I think you did that to me once. The last time I was down there, I think you texted me something along the lines of "I love you" or something, or something weird like that. That was obviously meant for Angela.
Yeah, it happened. So I almost told her that, and then I was like, I don't know, that might sound creepy. I'm not going to tell her that. I should have just fucking told her that. Not that it matters. Anyway, I think we should definitely wrap this up. This is the Evil Corp podcast. And we're going to be doing this every week after Mr. Robot. And who knows, maybe after the season we will find other things to talk about, and we'll just keep this train going before season 3. If you want to find me on the internets, you can reach me on Twitter at DharmaBob.
Don't look for me on the internet.
If you want to get a message to Mark, you can tweet me at DharmaBob.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't care. Here, go my phone number. Text me. I don't know. Facebook me. My name is Mark Delolo. I don't know. I don't care. I have a public Facebook page.
You don't want to give me your Twitter? You don't have to.
It's trying to remember what it was. Oh, it's just my name, at Mark Delolo. That's DILULLO.
There you go. I have your name spelled wrong on my phone.
Most people spell it wrong, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, so check back with us next week. We're going to be watching episode 3 of season 2 of Mr. Robot, Colonel Panic, or however they spell it.
Is that the name of the episode?
Yeah, Colonel Panic. I've got a list of all the episode titles. Is it all of them?
Colonel, like Colonel as in popcorn kernel, or Colonel as in army kernel?
Kernel as in computer kernel. Like the very core of like a operating system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that was a thing in computers.
Yeah. The past 2 episodes were Unmasked but spelled
Right. Yeah, I did see that after the fact. I didn't catch next week's title.
yeah.
When I heard you say Colonel, I thought that might be in reference to the gun and the popcorn there, but I guess not.
Oh shit! I didn't even put that together. Yeah, it probably is, man.
Well, maybe, although it's spelled differently, I guess. But
Oh,
it could be both. It could be both. It could be, since there is a computer. I didn't know there was any computer reference to Colonel, but since there is, maybe it's both. Maybe they're doing a little double thing there.
they might be, because I mean that was the big thing in the next week on Mr. Robot. He's just like, he wants to know what happened that night.
And that would make sense. Yeah, if they're gonna get back into, hopefully at some point they're gonna recount those missing 3 hours. So hopefully the sooner the better, and then definitely the popcorn gun will come into play.
Yes, and we will talk about it next week. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you next week.
Good night, everybody.